So in chapter 44 is where our territory is. Pick up with me, if you will, in verse 1. Then he commanded the steward of his house, that is Joseph, fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack, and put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, with his money for the grain. And he did as Joseph told him. So what's Joseph doing here? Well, he's setting up a test. Remember, the brothers are in Egypt right now, and he is going to send them back off to their father, right? But what does he do this time? He packs their bags with the money that they already returned to him, but he puts his silver cup in Joseph's bag. Now, Joseph's the youngest, right? Benjamin's the youngest, and he puts it in Benjamin's bag. Benjamin's the youngest brother. He's younger than Joseph. And so why this test? Isn't it interesting? Joseph's brothers sold him for 20 pieces of silver. And in this test, he's going to test them with not 20 pieces of silver, but one piece of valuable silver, a silver cup that Joseph is going to say was used for divination to interpret the future. Now, whether he actually used that cup, which would have been common in Egyptian culture or not, is something that the text doesn't tell us. I would venture to say he probably did not use that for fortune telling. He's already proven to show that he doesn't need a silver cup to interpret the future, as he's interpreted his own dreams, the dreams of the cupbearer and the baker, and the two dreams of Pharaoh. So Joseph has an ability to unlock what the future is without the silver cup. I just think it's part of a test. Can I trust my brothers? And so what does he do? He puts the silver cup in Benjamin's bag. And you know that this is going to give them a heart attack in a little bit when they discover that Benjamin has this. Now, let's pick up as we continue to read. Verse 3. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away with their donkeys. They had gone only a short distance from the city. Now Joseph said to his steward, "Up, follow after the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid evil for good? Is it not from this that my Lord drinks, and by this that he practices divination? You have done evil in doing this.'" So there's a mind screw going on here, and it's as if Joseph has been betrayed and he's having some fun toying with his brothers, right? Now, here is a principle of interpretation of the Bible that I want you to remember. The Bible doesn't approve of everything that is written, right? Just because the Bible records something doesn't mean it approves of something. So like Jephthah makes the stupid vow, whatever comes out of my house first will die. Well, unfortunately, someone was going to come out of that house first, and it just so happened to be his daughter. Okay, so all that to say that was a stupid vow. It doesn't mean we should make vows like that. In the same way, when we look at the Bible and we see what's going on here, when it's saying that, the cup was used for divination, or when we see the way that he's toying with his brothers, it doesn't mean, okay, here's the application. When somebody hurts you and you don't trust them, give them a really hard time. Come up with all these object lessons to just really test them. No, I think what we're seeing is the mental health of Joseph, that he has PTSD. And when you have relational trauma, this is the kind of stuff that we do. When we struggle with trust, it makes us paranoid. It makes us second guessers. It makes us want assurance and validation. And Joseph, on one hand, has shown a great amount of trust, and on the other hand, he's showing that his wounds are still there. Whether he's deriving a little bit of satisfaction from the test, or it's just a pure in heart test, or whether he's just, struggling to fully trust God, we need to remember that that's the way life is. We're a mixed bag. We have these moments where we're showing great maturity in our life and other moments where we're not showing great maturity in our life. I have moments of greatness during the day, folks. And I have moments of utter, complete depravity during the day as well. And my wife and kids said, preach it, Dad. Preach it, honey, right? And my wife, just coming off of 2 weeks of vacation with her, she's definitely depraved, right? And so one of the things, she's like, yeah, right, you want to talk about that? We know, that's right. The oracle has spoken. But all that to say, when you're looking at some of the stuff, yes, Joseph is trying to derive trust again. But the methods by which he's doing it doesn't mean that we should be doing those same methods. But what I do think happens is behind the scenes, God still shows that he's faithful and good, and he'll work in spite of our methods. Like Abraham and Sarah, you don't want to wait and be patient. You want to get a Hagar and have an Ishmael. That's fine. You can go through all that, but I'll still provide you an Isaac. And I think in the same way, we end up trying to help God out, maybe because of our own traumas, maybe because of our own wounds, our own PTSD. We don't know how to just rest in him. And so we contribute to the process. And because God's a good God, he knows how to meet us where we are at in the process. And I'm thankful for that. And I think that's where Joseph is at. He really wants to be sure that he can find out what happened to his younger brother. Is his dad still alive? There's a lot. Now imagine that. Let's stand in Joseph's shoes. You were literally dropped in a pit by your brothers, and they're looking at you going, see you, bro. And they're just walking off. And what do? They sit down and they eat a lunch. They don't feel any guilt, and they let their brother be sent off into slavery. And what he would go through for all of those years is overwhelming. So you can imagine, taking away his time with his dad and selling him off. What they did to him was deep. But the very fact that he was willing to forgive shows us something really, really powerful, really, really meaningful for our own life and what it means. And so let's keep reading as we look. Verse 6. So when he overtook them, he spoke to them these words, right? They said to him, why does my Lord speak such words as these? Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. Behold, the money that we found in the mouths of our sacks, we brought back to you from the land of Canaan. How then could we steal silver or gold from your Lord's house? Whichever of your servants is found with it shall die. Now, don't you just love the fact that someone pronounces that? Like, I'm thinking if I was the person that stole that, and then whoever has to say, well, whoever did this is dead, I'd be like, well, what makes you the authority over my life, right? But that's what is said, shall die. And we also will be my Lord's servants. He said, let it be as you say. He who is found with it shall be my servant, and the rest of you shall be innocent. Then each man quickly lowered his sack to the ground. Each man opened his sack, and he searched, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest. So everything, remember when they're eating last week? Benjamin gets 5 times the portion. They're being seated according to their age. Same thing here, right? The bags being emptied from oldest to youngest. And they can just see the providential hand of God in all of this. Our sin is finding us out. And I shared that guilt is that way. Sometimes we are guilty, but we don't experience and feel the guilt until years later. It wakes up later. Right when we thought we got away with it. Right when we thought it was no big deal. Right when we thought we were able to dupe God. Right? Like the clown in the can that you used to twist. What was that thing called when we were kids? Jack in the Box? Yeah, that thing, right? Boom. And you're taken back by it. It can happen in that way where guilt can emerge later. And God is using Joseph's methods, even if Joseph doesn't realize just how powerful of a God is at work behind the scenes, which I know he knows God is powerful, but how providential all of this is incredible. And so as we keep reading, let's take a look what we bump up against. So here we go. Verse 9, whichever your servants is found with it shall die, right? Let it be. Verse 11, then each man quickly lowered a sack to the ground. Each man opened his sack, and he searched, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest. So you can imagine a little bit of the bag from all these brothers. Boom, no silver there. Boom, no silver cup there. Boom, no silver cup there. You could imagine them going, see, I told you, like we're on it. And then they get to Joseph, and what's going to happen here? Well, they're hosed, right? Basically, it says, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Oh my goodness. You've got to be kidding me. Like, remember, Jacob allowed them to bring Benjamin back to prove that Benjamin was really alive. And now they're bringing him back, and this is the worst thing that can happen. Like, it is going from bad to worse to impossible. Does life ever feel like that to you? Like, man, it's bad. It just got worse. And now, frankly, it feels impossible. This is what they're thinking. Like, they are being found out every turn they make. I mean, it is closing in on them. And they are just devastated because it's in Benjamin's sack. And what does it say? Verse 13. Then they tore their clothes. Notice, and every man loaded his donkey, and they returned to the city. Now here's the contrast. They tore their clothes. This time they're exhibiting remorse and guilt and contrition. They're tearing their own clothes. In the past, what did they do? They tore Joseph's robe. They didn't feel remorse. They sat there and ate their lunch with a spirit of indifference. So here's something else that we need to know. Just because in one moment of our life we don't feel guilty about something doesn't mean at another moment in our life we won't feel guilty about something. And that's a good thing. It means that God's at work. Remember, God allows guilt in our life like a check engine light. It's not there to last long. It's not there to shame you. It's there to say it's time to come into the shop. We've got some work to do. We've got to reconcile this relationship. The longer you drive with the check engine light on and not take the car into the shop, the more damage can be caused. Similarly, the longer you carry the secret, the longer you stay in denial, the longer you deny it, the more damage is being done because all along we're not being honest with God. We're not being honest with ourselves. Days are going by. Our life is short. We don't have many days to be able to maximize this opportunity we have for living. And God wants us what? To see the engine light, to get in the shop, to get clean so that we can be restored to Him, so that He can shower us with a much better experience, the experience of grace, the experience of mercy, the experience of being let out of the shop with no more guilt, no more shame, with a new direction in your life. So that's why God is trying to get our attention. He's not like some cruel jokester up in the air trying to just haunt you. Rather, He wants you to feel the sensation of guilt enough to get into the shop so that He can get you fixed up, so He can get you forgiven, get your guilt taken away, get your shame taken away, and get you on track again. But some people will go through life doing everything they can do to not look at the guilt. And when that jack-in-the-box comes up, or when that whack-a-mole comes up, boom, they hit it back down. And life just becomes, how do I just cover that sin and cover this sin and cover this sin and cover this sin, cover this, and you just start going crazy, right? You just start feeling like life's falling apart.